The Samsung Galaxy Z Fold 4 is so much better than the Pixel Fold. I'm returning the Pixel Fold and keeping my Samsung Galaxy Z Fold even though this screen is broken. But it is still a pretty good phone, so I'll explain more. Yeah, so here is my first experience with the Pixel Fold, fresh out the box. I didn't think there's any need to show the unboxing experience. There's about 800 videos on that already. Now, I'm gonna give my initial, like I said, I haven't even put my phone number on here yet. I just kind of set it up a little bit just to see what it was like. So I've used it for maybe 30 minutes at this point. Here's my initial thoughts after someone that's had a Samsung Z Fold 3 and the Samsung Z Fold 4. Right off the bat, this bezel is crazy noticeable. Like I know I saw it in pictures and I was like, oh yeah, it won't be a big deal, but it does seem super noticeable. It is cool when it's like this. You know, obviously that's much better than the skinny tall Samsung variant. This is cooler, but when you unfold it like this, it feels a little squished down compared to Samsung, right? It's the same size, right? If you swap the Samsung this way, it'd be the same size, but in your standard orientation, I mean, obviously I've had the Samsung for 2 generations now, so essentially 2 years with the Samsung phone. Daily driver, I haven't used any other phones really, and I'm used to it this way, but it seems to make more sense to me the way this is laid out. So you can go horizontal if you want to, but you're gonna be this way for the most part. Whereas the Pixel, everything you open is gonna be right here, and you'll have to go this way to look at things differently. And I don't know. Again, just opened it, so it's hard to say. Another initial thing that I think's kind of weird, it does have wireless charging. So you can tell the wireless charger works when it turns to, chroma RGB here. So that means the wireless charger is working. This doesn't currently have a case on it. I would imagine you would put the wireless charger up against this, but when you do that, it doesn't charge. So at first I was like, man, is this not a wireless charging phone? It has to be like that. It seems odd, right? Like it's on the camera hump, essentially. Now again, that may be this particular charger or whatnot, but it just seems weird. It seems like it would rest on the hump and then work, but it doesn't. Outside of that, again, could be what I'm used to. Fingerprint sensor on the side is, of course, the best way to do it. All phones should be doing that instead of using face unlock or on-screen display fingerprint sensor, but on the Samsung it seems to make more sense to have the fingerprint sensor on the bottom. Theirs is on the top and the volume's here, and on Samsung is the volume on top and the fingerprint on the bottom. So I think that's odd. Again, it could be getting used to it, who knows. Almost every review video I watch, everyone's all like, I'm so glad to have a foldable that's not Samsung. I'm finally glad someone to have a Pixel in the foldable, but I've predominantly used Samsung phones for a very long time. You can see I worn this leather cases, right? You know, that's not supposed to be that color. It's supposed to be, you can see the difference there, right? So that's how much I use this phone every day. I'm used to this way the Samsung phones work. And to me, it seems more intuitive the way Samsung has things laid out than the way a Pixel phone does. There's a lot of things that have been annoying me from my little intro here of the Pixel that I just prefer on Samsung. That may change, but that's my initial thoughts. Also, there's like a lip here where the border and your finger rubs against it. So you can really feel that on the top. And so if you want to slide down to touch to get to your settings, I mean, you can just do it like this, I guess, but I'm just used to pulling down. You can really feel that on the side there. So I feel like that's gonna be bad for a screen protector that's on there, or just in general, it's probably gonna be problematic. With Samsung, I don't notice it. It just feels smoother on Samsung than that. And again, I'm just used to this orientation, and this seems better for me. But again, I'm gonna try it out. Same day still, getting used to it. We'll check it out. Okay, so like I said in the intro, I've had this Pixel Fold for a little over a week, almost 2 weeks now, and I am gonna return it. I did put my phone number on here. I did use it as my regular phone, and I just found myself missing the way Samsung does things. For the past 2 years, just about the only phones I've used are those from the Galaxy Z Fold series. The Galaxy Z Fold 3 was my first one, and then I got the Galaxy Z Fold 4, and I've had zero interest in any other phones until this Pixel came out. I'm a firm believer that once you get used to using one of these folding phones, it's very hard to go back to a standard candy bar style phone. Lies Tech Tips and Mr. Mobile seem to agree with that as well. And what the Pixel Fold has taught me is that I really like the way Samsung does things. I understand why the Pixel Fold is different, but I think the Samsung still does it better. For example, most if not all the reviews are going to focus on how much better this outer screen is than the Samsung style outer screen. Obviously this one's thinner and taller, and this one's shorter and wider. So, if you're gonna type, obviously it's a lot easier just to type on this stuff here than it is on the Samsung. Again, mine's broken, so I can't show you, but I've had this for a long time. Obviously, you see how big my hands are. Not easy to type on this smaller screen. My friend Tony has the Galaxy Z Fold 4, and he says he probably uses his outer screen more than 50% of the time. However, my friend Tony's an idiot. All my friends are losers. All my friends are losers. To me, the point of getting a foldable phone is to have the big screen. I would say I use the inner screen about 80% of the time, if not more. The only time I use the external screen is for a quick spot check of a notification, or if just for some reason I only have one hand available. Sometimes it's either just take a picture using the phone with the fold closed as well. If you want to take a picture, this is okay, but if you're trying to take a selfie or just a one-handed picture, being able to hold the camera like this. My guesstimate of me saying I use the inner screen 89%. Now I use it 100% because this side is broken, and I still prefer just having this big inner screen. It's just the way I use the phone on a daily basis. Personally, I think a lot of the reviewers focus on the wrong thing when they're showing off foldable phones. They almost always talk about the ability to multitask and have two things on the screen at once or whatever. Yeah, you can use that, but how often do you really plan on using a phone like that? I can tell you, as someone who's had the Fold as a daily driver for 2 years, I literally never use it like that. I use the inner screen as a big ass phone. And in my opinion, this is where the Pixel Fold fails. It's basically trying to be two screens side by side instead of being one big phone, which is evident, right off the bat. You can see the way these apps are lined up on the main page here. And when I open it, that's just them right here. So it treats it like two separate screens. Almost like the way the Microsoft Duo was going to work, but without a gap and a hinge in the middle. So and even like here, you can see it just treats everything like two screens. You can some things stretch out, but for the most part, it's actually like just two screens side by side. And that's not how I use my phone. I like having one big screen like this. Now, to be fair, I should clarify, I am a Samsung fan. I've been using Samsung phones as my main phone for many years now. Even before having a YouTube channel, I would normally get the latest and greatest Samsung phone every time one came out. However, I also loved LG. I really love this V10 and V20 series, but LG doesn't make phones anymore. And I've had several Pixel phones, even going back to the Pixel 6, it was called Shamu, and the Nexus 6. And then I've purchased several of the Pixel phones as well. But ultimately for myself, I always came back to Samsung devices. If anything, using the Pixel has made me a little bit understand why people that use Apple phones are so hesitant to leave Apple. I think once you get used to just the way something works so well, it's hard to try something different. So maybe the Pixel does do things okay, but for me, Samsung does things so well, I just have a hard time trying another device at this point. Like this little side piece right here, right? That's a little cool little side piece to pull up extra apps real quick. I like that.
I like that.
These screens, when they're open, they're essentially the same size, right? So this is just horizontal. So right, if I put the Samsung horizontal, they're basically the same shape. But for most things you're doing on a phone, you're scrolling up, right? Like if you go to Twitter, X now, right? You're scrolling up. And so on here, one, it's gonna be squished in on the Pixel. You have this black space on the side. Samsung has a feature called Samsung Labs, where you can force apps to stretch out, fit their size, right? So you can see the difference there. Obviously much more pleasant on the Samsung. Now, if you turn the Pixel sideways, it will fill up. But the other problem is your buttons are now on the bottom of the phone, which are obviously not very handy. Two, the Pixel does not go perfectly 180 flat, right? It's almost like an ever so slight V shape. Not so noticeable like this, but when you do it like this, especially if your finger is hitting this crease every time, and it's not a great experience. Also, I don't love the navigation features. Like, see, I use the buttons still, right? So I still use this on Samsung. And you notice on Samsung, I can stretch them out across here. You can shrink them to one side if you want, but like I said, I use mine like a big ass phone, so I like the buttons in the middle. Pixel's using the swipe, but if you turn the controls on, they're just stuck in the corner over here. Now, to be fair, there may be a way to change that, but like I turn on 3-button navigation, and they're just over here. And even if you click on it, the only option is to hold your home for assistant, right? And then, so now, like I said, it's just treating it like one screen, which is annoying. So even though I don't like gestures, when using the Pixel, I basically had to turn the gestures on because it was just awkward to use the buttons on this side. Now, when you're on this screen, perfectly fine. But when the phone's expanded, obviously not great. So here I am on my Samsung phone. If you go to settings, if you just go to navigation, you see one that little flash there does to tell you where you found it in search. Google may do that, I don't remember. But on the navigation bar, you can see you can do buttons, you can change the swipe gestures, you can change the button order around, and then you can change the button position. So like right here, I can do right side, so now they're over here, and now do left side, and now they're over here, or you can put them like I prefer in the center. There's a lot of options here that Samsung, even if you chose swipe, you have a lot of options to change the swipe options. I don't like that. I like the buttons, but you can do the swipe in the bottom as well. So, Samsung just allows you a lot more options than the Google Pixel. It leads into another problem. You can really feel with this bezel, the screen's here. I don't know if you can tell that, but there is the screen protector is like right there. And you feel it like all the time. Samsung also has a screen protector, but they go way closer to the edge, way less bezel. And like the big black bezel doesn't bother me too much. Like when I first got it, I did notice it heavily, but once you use it for a little bit, that kind of blends out in the background. But you do feel it. There's a physical difference between where the screen is and where this big metal brim is. So you feel it every time you touch there, which is a pretty unpleasant experience. So look, if I want to see my doorbell, right, we're looking like that. And if I turn it sideways, you do get a little button here to expand it, which is nice. So I was like, all right, well that fixes it. And then you have to restart it, which is annoying. But now it's in this full screen mode. But then when I flip it back, it's still a little bit, and you click it again, and it goes back to small again, which is annoying. So you can't fill the whole screen out. But like if I go to my Ring doorbell on Samsung, you can see it fills out the whole screen. Even if I go horizontal like the switch, like the Pixel, no, actually it doesn't. How about that? Oh, you can zip it from side to side, right? Which is nice. But again, I'm using my phone like this. So there's no way to do it here. You can double tap and go side to side like that. But what someone else noticed is that you can't even scroll on these black screens. They just don't really exist. You can only scroll here, which you can't scroll by touching these sides. So it just feels like you're using a much smaller device than you normally would. So this is a much smaller screen now than you would even have on a candy bar phone. Same thing with like YouTube Studio, right? So if I want to see how well my latest videos are doing, you know, it goes like this. And then if I turn it this way, you have this button. So now I've expanded it and now it fits there nice and clean, right? You can tell that my eGPU video is doing really well. Close it back. Now let me open it again and it stays there. But if I want to close that, right, well, I can't get to recreate now, but trust me, it doesn't stick after you close your apps or restart the phone or something like that. It won't go. Samsung, once you turn the setting on, it's just that way. That's just how it is. So unless I turn the setting off, it's gonna stick in this shape. And you can see right there, right? You know, you can see how well my eGPU video is doing. The whole point of buying a fold is to have a big screen, right? So we have this little scrunched up screen, or, you know, obviously one of these is better. Simple. Again, you can turn it this way, but then you gotta see, like now it's back. So I gotta hit this button again, and then it refreshes the app and restarts the app essentially. And then here we are, and it's just not as good, right? And you can tell, I don't know if you can, that lean is evident, but you can see the indent there, like it's almost like, you know, poking at you on both the front and top are kind of coming toward you. So yeah, I understand why Pixel did this, to be a little different and have this screen as a selling point. But if you want a big phone, you don't want it big this way. You want it big this way, right? This is how you want to use it. And even for things that do spread out this whole way, right? It's a very stretched out, short screen, right? And that's not necessarily how I think you want to look at a website. What you want to do, right? I mean, it's personal preference, I guess, but for me, this one's better, right? It just makes more sense. Also, just general things like, I find like the auto brightness doesn't work well. That's been a problem for all the phones I think I've had. Samsung, I think, works really well, but like the old LG phones and all the Google phones, I don't think their auto brightness works well. Like I'm always having to tweak it, whereas Samsung just seems to know the brightness I like. And I will say, for my phone, I usually use this SwiftKey keyboard. On the Google Pixel, since it's a different kind of keyboard, I have found myself liking this split keyboard. I don't like it on the Samsung. But on the Pixel, I found that I type pretty well using this. And I even tried putting SwiftKey on there, but I like the Google one better on this phone. But on my regular Samsung phone, SwiftKey all day. And again, a lot of it's personal preference, but I also think the camera is better on the Samsung phone. And again, I mean, I just think Samsung does things better, right? I like Samsung phones. I like the way they do things. Some people complain about Samsung devices. I'm not one of those guys. I actually like Samsung Calendar. I like Samsung Notes. I like a lot of the features they have. The things they built that are duplicate to Google features, I almost always like the Samsung version better, with the exception of Mail. Obviously, Gmail's better than Samsung's Mail, but I mean, I use Samsung Notes all the time. You can see I have tons and tons of notes on there compared to Google Keep, which I did use a lot in the past, but now I find Samsung Notes to be much better. Yeah, I mean, it's just, I don't know, it's just a better experience, right? For my hands, this is perfect. I love it. I love it. Now, I wouldn't mind if Samsung made a phone this wide and this tall, then that would be pretty great. That would make the bigger screen even bigger and better, right? So that really seems to be probably the next iteration. Now, to be fair to the Pixel, the Samsung Galaxy Z5 just got announced. I've already pre-ordered it. So I'm gonna wait till the 5 comes in, then I'm gonna get this one repaired and then sell this one. I just bought this one, so I'm still in my return window, so I'm gonna return it. If my Samsung Galaxy Z Fold 4 was completely broken, like both screens were broken and didn't work, I would definitely keep the Pixel Fold even over the Samsung Galaxy S23 Ultra. 4, which I think is a really excellent phone, but I'm so in love with folding phones. The big screen folding. I don't understand why anyone wants a Z Flip or a Moto Razr. That candy bar flip makes no sense to me. The big screen flipping is much better, and I would definitely choose the Pixel Fold over a regular candy bar phone. But in a world where the Samsung Galaxy Z Fold series, or I don't have any use for the Pixel. Also personal preference, but I'm used to the way the fingerprint sensor setup is on the Samsung. Fingerprint in the bottom, volume on the top. They flipped it on Google for some reason. I don't know. I do think the look of the Pixel is pretty cool. I like this look, I think, better than the Samsung look. But either way, Pixel Fold, pretty good phone, just not better than Samsung Folds. One more thing. So if you're gonna watch a YouTube video, or any video really, but YouTube obviously is the most logical. So most watch my own video, right? So if I click on this video, so this is on the Samsung, of course. Give that thumbs up. So you're watching the video. If you just turn the phone like this, boom, it goes right into full screen mode, which is very nice. If I go to the Pixel, right? So I mean, look how tiny it is. Sure, if you want to engage with comments, then I guess you have an option there, but again, you're getting a really small screen. And if you turn the phone this way, sure, it is bigger, but you kind of basically have to hit the full screen button for it to go full screen. Again, is pushing 1 or 2 buttons a big deal? No, but like I said, just don't want to talk about how I'm used to how nice Samsung does things, right? It's just very common to flip the screen and boom, I'm in full screen, boom, back to a typing bot here, right? So boom, see how nice that is? That's a nice little Samsung tweak that Samsung gives you.